All right, welcome back. Level One Coach Podcast. Drew here with you in America, and our special guest, who's not a guest, he's the co-host, but he's over across the pond in England today. So, we are gonna get into some actual level one stuff. If you're a level one coach now or you resonate, this one might be a top favorite episode for you by the time we're done. But I'm going to start with a quote. I'm going to kick it to you quick, and then let's just dive into this. So I wrote this morning. We've been talking off air, and I wrote, there's this cliche that coaches use for players about what got you here won't get you to the next level. And I think if you're a level one coach, that's terrible advice. It might be good to give to your players, but if you're a level one coach, what got you here won't get you to the next level is bad advice. If you want to dive into some of your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think that is we've heard that phrase or we both couldn't exactly remember the correct or official wording on that one, but I think it's a commonly used phrase about the message of trying to make sure that the players are aware that things may be different at the next level. And I think when it pertains to coaches or as it pertains to coaches and like you're saying specifically, guys like at that level one, like what what got you to whatever level you're now at. So say you started at we refer to level one as just kind of the bottom of of the barrel as far as maybe it's starting in AAA youth hockey, starting in juniors, starting in Division 3 college. It could be different for everyone, but starting at that level and now you've worked your way up to a professional level or Division 1 or high level junior hockey, whatever it is, like whatever got you there as a coach and whatever you do that's authentic to you. And that's a super, or it's a commonly thrown around cliche, like, oh, be authentic. But it is, it is true that whatever got you to where you are now. So let's just say you started out coaching at Division 3 and now you're coaching in the NHL. And we're going to get to someone who did that exact thing. But say that's you, like whatever got you from the Division 3 level to the next level to the next level, like that was that's part of who you are. It's part of what makes you an effective coach and probably more so more than a coach, an effective communicator, someone who players and people want to be around and build relationships with and enjoy the company of outside of just the coaching aspect. And in reality, like if you are able to continue to do those things from Division 3 to the next level, like you're gonna, that's gonna make you a better coach when you get to that highest level. And it's also going to allow you to have more success whenever you get there because you've continued to be, again, I hate using the same word over and over, but authentic to yourself. And it's something that for coaches in reality is good advice. Like you should stay authentic to yourself. What got you to this level will get you to the next level as long as you stick with it. And don't try to change because now you're coaching a different level, older kids, um, whatever it might be. So that's where I take it. That's like where my mind goes, but I'll throw it back to you if you have thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. Where my brain goes, and you brought up, without saying his name, we'll bring it up now, Ryan Warsofsky. And I'll let my dog stop barking and edit this out.
I can't hear it actually.
Oh, good. Then I can keep talking. It was a garbage truck. Anyway, maybe we'll just keep it in. Real life shit happening. Garbage truck going down the street. But you brought up Ryan Warsofsky without saying his name. And to use him as an example and listening to some of his podcasts, talking to him once on the phone, shout out to Ryan for being a level one guy that actually will take the time for a tier 3 coach. Good dude. But shameless plug for Ryan. And what what he talks about and what his biggest struggle being a young coach that started just flying up the ranks right away. And the second level that he was at was the East Coast League. And that was the level that guys started being older. He was coaching guys that were older than him. And he talked about how that might be, or everyone brought up from the outside, like, how are you going to deal with that? How are you going to deal with that? Like, whether it's the press, his buddies, whatever. That's like the common question. And his answer was always like, it's not going to affect me because they're just human beings. And like, I talk about the first principle of coaching is love. And whether you want to use that term or care or empathy or whatever, as long as you're doing that and you're providing value, the guys don't care if you're 26 or 46. They don't care if you played high school lacrosse like John Cooper or played in the NHL. They just want value and they just want to be able to like and respect you as a person. So if you can cover those bases, which Ryan did and continues to do, then that's what begets success. And not in terms of like wins and losses, though he's been very successful at that, but like he's very well respected by his players, by his peers. No one has a bad word to say about the guy. And it's because you just go back to the first principle of coaching, which is care, like genuinely care. I'll kick that back to you if you have some thoughts.
Yeah, what I love about it is like the common, and I would say even when I first started coaching, and even I think still now, like I catch myself having these thoughts too of like, you think that, using Warsofsky as an example, like you think that, well, he didn't play at that level. So like, how does he make, some guy on the Sharks better? Or how does he make sure that their draft picks are developing or whatever, which maybe wasn't as big of a thing, but now will be as a head coach. Like you think that because he didn't play at that level or because he didn't um he didn't have experience at a comparable level that he may not be able to coach guys or motivate them or bring them together as a team. And then what you forget or what you learn when you listen to someone like him talk is like you realize like these guys are still people and they want to work with someone who they feel cares about them and is there to make them better. And at the end of the day, if they know whether it's a guy making $1 million a year or $11 million a year, if he knows that his head coach or his assistant coach is there to make him better, and that's his number one goal and his number one priority throughout the season, he wants to listen to you. Um, and I think like as a coach, you could turn this around and you could ask yourself, like, if I could hire someone to coach me to try to make me a better coach, would I care that they've coached hockey versus soccer versus basketball, baseball? Probably not. If I felt that they were there to make me better and make sure that I improve from one year to the next, I'm not sure I would care what level they came from, but or also what sport they came from. And it's a little different, but I think with coaches, it's the same principle with your players that like I don't think guys on the Sharks, I've said this probably not on air, but off air to you before. Like I think people, and this includes players, of course, are looking for reasons to trust others and are like, I think that's most people's default. You're looking for a reason to trust, you're looking for a reason to believe. I don't think when someone walks into a room, whether it's a new coach, teammate, whatever it is, you're looking for reasons to cut them down. If you have some prior beef with them, yes, but like just on a random person or a random new coach that you don't know, you're looking for reasons to believe and trust in them. So as a guy like Warsofsky now, like when he joins, whether it was the ECHL, the AHL, or now the NHL as a new coach, I don't think he's looking for reason. No one is looking for reasons to cut him down. They're looking for reasons to trust him.
Yeah. And it kind of goes to like where my brain goes with that is like, and I just wrote about this with Warsofsky in an article, or not with him, about him. But like it goes to the Jocko quote of like, as a leader, and the players are looking to see it from the leader first before they're like, okay, I should do this too, or I can do this too, or I'm inspired to do this too. And I think where there's like a diversion between some of the level one, and the level one guys tend to be more empowered, going to power versus force, but like the force coach demands and walks in the door and says, "You give me ownership first. I want to see it from you guys." Where the power guy walks in the door and he says, "I'm going to model," or he's not even going to say it, he's going to do it. "I'm going to model ownership first. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And then because I led and went first, then what you give is returned to you over time if you're doing it respectfully and the players buy in and like you and you're caring and you're showing that you care." So initially my brain goes to that. Let me kick that over to you.
What I think of right away is we've all heard of actions speak louder than words, but then we forget, I think, that we get in these positions, whether it's as a new coach or um, just as a coach in general, and you start to think that you need to say certain things to make sure players, or especially again as a new coach, that your new team understands this is what you're about. And in reality, like that's important to speak it, but it's more important to live it every day. And so, like you're saying, if you want your team um to be accountable, or to make sure that the team understands the importance of like them holding themselves accountable before needing to be held accountable by a coach or whatever, like you as a coach need to exemplify that. And it's great to say, we're going to play in a way that's accountable, or we're going to hold players accountable, but hold yourself accountable and exemplify those attributes that you want to see in your team. And then I think that speaking about it becomes less important, because it becomes self-evident that we have to exhibit ownership, or we have to exhibit accountability, or we have to be on time, whatever it is, because he always is. And I think that's where like the actions, what you do on a daily basis and how you conduct yourself, although some things may seem um, more trivial than others, like I think those are areas where like even the littlest of things, like holding yourself accountable to being on time to a meeting, or being on time to, and I'm not talking team meeting, but like a meeting individually with a player, or making sure that you are prepared for a film session. Like those are little things that I think like even I myself find at times like not doing as good of a job as I could with that. And then when I reflect like now in the off season, I think about like how much that matters if you're a player and you're looking at your coach. Doesn't matter, assistant, head, young, old, like none of that really matters. It's like, is he there on time? Does he want to make me better? And does he care? And if I'm not there on time, it might be because I'm just running late that day and has nothing to do with the player, but they might perceive it as like he doesn't really care, or he's not here to make me better. And that's where like those little actions, they're way more important, I think, than, as you're saying, the words that you speak really ever, but especially in the beginning when you first are in front of a new team.
Yeah, it reminds me of written about the Dan Campbell razor, which like everyone, if you're familiar with him and you've seen him, if not, quick Google search, the Detroit Lions head coach. He's like former tight end. Now he's just like big, muscular, like looks like a bodybuilder. Um, so like gravel truck of a voice, like can get pretty intense. But I think we and the media and all the outside, again, there's such a difference between what's being said on the outside and like why the players are actually following the guy. So the Dan Campbell razor is, don't attribute intensity to what is actually integrity. And that can lead into both conversations about Ryan, and then the other guy we were going to bring up is the Celtics coach, Joe Mazzulla. Um, Let me bounce that over to you.
So for Warsofsky, before we move on to Missoula, like what caught my eye was that press conference the other day.
Mhm.
where he was introduced to the team, and you talk about integrity, like he and I didn't watch the whole thing, so there could be more to it than what I saw, but the clip that I saw, he's really emotional, and he's sitting there with Mike Greer and their president, who I can't remember the name of now, the president of the Sharks, and he essentially just gives credit to and thanks Rob Concannon from South Carolina in the ECHL for giving him his first job. And he talks about how after his first year coaching in Division 3 at Curry, he reached out to Rob. Rob got right back to him and brought him in, and then kind of the rest is history. He spent, I think 2 or 3 years as an assistant, 2 or 3 years as a head coach. Then he was, I think, a year in Charlotte in the AHL as an assistant, and then a couple of years as a head coach between there and Chicago Wolves, and obviously now with San Jose. And what struck me, or what I liked the most about it, was like that is one of those quintessential moments where you're being introduced to the team, and you can start talking about um, what kind of team you want to have, and in some ways, I think without even meaning to, um, coaches end up like when they say that, they end up undermining the previous coach and kind of saying like this team is we're going to be more accountable, or we're going to be more competitive, or whatever it is. And you don't mean to, because you want to talk about the future, and of course the media and fans want to hear about that, but you end up, I think a lot of times guys end up sort of like undermining the previous coach, and making it sound like things weren't good and it's going to be so much better with me now. And anyways, he doesn't do any of that. Doesn't talk about what kind of play they're going to have, or what to look forward to in the next season. And he doesn't thank Mike Greer, which, like, obviously I know he has thanked Mike Greer, I'm sure, but he goes back to like 10 years ago, and like do the trickle down of like he doesn't get to the NHL if he doesn't get to the AHL. He doesn't get to the AHL if he doesn't get to the ECHL, and he doesn't get to the ECHL without Rob Concannon and other people, of course. But that's the guy who in pro hockey took a chance on him and was like, however many guys there are across Division 3, Division 1, all levels of junior hockey, there are plenty other guys that you could take instead of this guy from Division 3. And he chose to take Warsofsky. And so now, like 10, 11, 12, whatever it is, years later, he's sitting there as an NHL head coach at 36 years old, which is remarkable in itself just by the age, or even if you did play in the NHL. But being that age, having his background of being a Division 1 and Division 3 player, and starting his coaching career at the Division 3 level, and thanking that guy that first gave him a job in pro hockey. I think that was like that was super cool for me to see, just like that level of integrity and awareness that like I could be um a million different places than I am today if it weren't for this one guy. And there are obviously countless other people to thank, but for him, like clearly that is the one guy that truly took a chance on him, or and gave him a shot. And to not forget that, like, where you came from aspect of it is like, I mean, the podcast is called Level One for a reason. Like that's where he originated from, that level one. And he clearly hasn't forgotten that those are where his roots are. And to just thank that guy that gave him his first opportunity in pro hockey was really cool.
Yeah, that what you said makes me think of a lot of things. I'll try and hit on them all. I took some notes, but the first thing is like talent still needs to like be given a chance. So like you can have the Hurricanes, you were just telling me the story about I'm forgetting the guy's name, forgive me. If you want to shout him out, go ahead. I'll stop talking for a sec. The new GM.
Polsky.
Tulski, yeah. Okay, so like his background story, whatever, like he's kind of like Sam Hinkie. Sam Hinkie worked at Bain and Company, um, in the regular people world, elite regular people world, but regular people world, and um, gets a job in pro basketball with the Rockets because Daryl Morey sees something in how he thinks. Not necessarily the fact that Sam Hinkie played in the NBA or whatever, because he didn't. So he's not from that. It's Surgeon's paradox. He's not from central casting. He's an outsider. And this Tulski guy, background is in physics, has like 27 registered patents, whatever. Like he's not a hockey guy, but he wrote a random hockey analytics blog like 10, 15 years ago, before they were really a thing. And contrarian and what seemed to be right ideas now, that he was writing about at the time. And someone on Carolina got a hold of it and said, hey, we should bring this guy in as a consultant, and like worked his way up. The rest is history. Now he's the GM. But like, you still have to, and he's probably never forgotten who it was, whether it was, I don't even know who their GM would have been 10 years ago, but like, he hasn't forgotten that someone took a shot on him and made him a NHL hockey consultant when he was a physics whatever guy. So, and I think there's this contrast. I'm interested to see what you think about this, not to make it about like the other brand that I do, but we've talked about power versus force, and power is essentially just love. Love enters when force turns into power at the level of 200. I'll shut up about that. But what's interesting, and I was like thinking in my head as we were talking about Mazzulla and we were talking about Warsofsky and these other level one guys that we talk about, and obviously we are level one guys, so we think about it, we talk about it. And I was like, why are all these level one guys power guys and relationship first and love and coaching the way that we think coaching should be done? And what you said with the Warsofsky thing, and what I'll say when I eventually make it and when you eventually make it. And there's already been someone for me that's opened the door. I probably shouldn't have been a tier 3 head coach at 25 years old with my playing background, but I had a guy and he pulled me up the first time, and someone will do it again, hopefully, and I can stop Ubering. But, and you'll have the same thing. And Ryan Warsofsky had that, and Rob Concannon is the guy that put him on the map and surfaced the talent and showcased what was already there. Like, but talent still has to be discovered or given a shot. That was a little bit of a rip for me, so I'll kick it to you.
Yeah, I think that's like there are probably like I said with other or with Rob Concannon and hiring Warsofsky, like there were probably hundreds of other guys he could have taken from college hockey, junior hockey, other levels of pro hockey that he didn't. So there's someone out there who's maybe just as talented as Warsofsky that just hasn't gotten that chance or didn't get that chance and then ended up giving up or whatever. And it is true that like you still do need someone to take a chance on you at some point in order to be able to show through. And I think the difference is like the Warsofskys of the world, there's more guys out there like that. They need that opportunity. When they're given that opportunity, they will flourish in it and they will do well. And it'll show that they're prepared for this. The guy in Carolina, Tulsky, could be an example of like a Sam Hinkie, but now in hockey, where um, probably the 29 or however many other teams were in the league at the time that he was hired with Carolina. I think it was like almost 10 years ago now, 8 years ago, something like that. Probably not a lot of other teams were willing to give him a shot because, as you said, he does not have a hockey background. A BA and I think physics and something else from Harvard, and then PhD or something at Berkeley. Like those aren't really NHL level qualifications, although they are impressive. So I think for him, like he could be a guy now where he's able to get an opportunity that say Carolina didn't take a shot on him however many years ago, and he flipped and started writing about baseball, and then he's now in the MLB in a parallel world. So I think as much as you do have to have the talent to be able to flourish in those roles, you need a person or a group to take a chance on you, and then vice versa. Like as much as you need as much as you need that group, you need the talent to then shine through once you're there. So you can't have one without the other. And in a perfect world, you do have both where you're able to get that opportunity and then you're able to succeed once you're there.
Yeah. The thing about like we've talked about this too, and what you were saying with the Tolsky thing and the Hinky thing, um, like they're almost happening. Like those guys are obviously hired on purpose, but when you see this like level one coach that quote comes out of nowhere and the transition to Joe Mazzulla fits here, like we've talked about this off the air a ton that these coaches, these level one coaches, these empowered coaches that are doing it the way we think coaching should be done, they're happening by accident. They're coming in on interim roles because something happened in the organization or a coach got fired halfway through the year and they're looking around mid-season and they're like, well, let's just make an assistant a head coach. And you end up making the right decision on picking that guy, but that guy was there the whole time and that guy didn't have a shot. If you hired that head coach that he took over for, he didn't have a shot interviewing just on the head coaching position alone. So it takes this interim emergency situation to be like, oh, fuck, we need a guy. Let's look to our assistants. And then Joe Mazzulla happens to be this like rock star, high performing coach. And you had no idea that he could have done it as the head guy unless your coach gets suspended for a year out of nowhere because something happened. And then it's like, oh crap, him. It's got to be him because we lost the other assistant in Boston, Will Hardy. They lost him the previous offseason to Utah as a head coach. So both of your talk about timing. Like if Will Hardy doesn't get that job, Will Hardy's probably ahead of Mazzulla on the depth chart of we just lost our head coach to suspension. Let's make Will the guy. So it's like it takes these emergencies and timing and like happy accident serendipity instead of like let's go intentionally find Tolsky, Mazzulla, Hinky. And like the GMs are a bad example because they were intentionally sought after. But like the coaches like Mazzulla that are making it and showing up on scene, it's like this happy accident instead of we're looking for them on purpose. If you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, what's funny is like the very first word that came to mind when you started talking 2 minutes ago was happy accident, and then eventually you said it, but that's exactly what they are. Like they're happy accidents that if all had gone as planned, this never would have occurred. And then it occurs because, from an outside perspective, or um I guess from an like with outside the organization, you look at the situation in Boston and it's like, well, shit hit the fan here. So we need to do something. And now like, well, I guess like kind of do the about face, shrug your shoulders, and yeah, Missoula will take over. And you don't necessarily, at least from the outside, it doesn't appear that these were intentional moves from the start. And if Missoula was never I guess I don't actually know who the head coach was before Missoula, but if that guy that got in trouble and whatever didn't, um, would Missoula now be at like a Division 1 program, or would he still just be an assistant in Division 1, or sorry, in the NBA, or would he have left by now to be a head coach elsewhere in the NBA, maybe with a team that was looking to make a change, like, and now you had this guy with this potential in Boston, like with theoretically like the capability to win an NBA championship, but you let him go somewhere else. And I mean, I think like the world does work that way where there are happy accidents and there's luck and randomness involved. And of course, like you can't always facilitate this perfect scenario or this perfect storm to take place. But it does appear that a lot of the, I would say, uh, younger, perceptually unqualified, and when I say unqualified, I don't actually mean unqualified, but people who didn't play at the level, who don't have that experience, whether it's in the NHL, NBA as a player, So younger, those perception unqualified people, it seems right now that when they do get opportunities at the highest level to be a head coach in the NHL or the NBA, they're almost like they're almost like, well, we have to do this because, with Mazzulla, we don't have time to hire someone else, so we'll make him head coach. And San Jose, I don't know what happened with Quinn, but we get rid of Quinn and then like we'll name Warsofsky because he's already here. And I imagine if I had to go through how the hiring process worked, and I have no insider information, I have no clue, but I imagine a lot of the players probably wanted Warsofsky to be the head coach based on the fact that he was part of the staff the years prior, but wasn't let go of. So I'd imagine that comes from players saying like, we want him to be our coach or we want him to stay. And so now you're like, okay, we'll make him head coach. But like, I don't know, I could be wrong, but like, was that an intentional plan 3 years ago when he was hired or 2 years ago when he was hired? At the NHL level. A lot of times I think it seems as though, I mean, the other one that comes to mind for me, and this is your guy, but Brandon Naurato in Michigan. Like, I don't feel like that's the way that scenario played out. Maybe it was the intentional plan all along, but it seems like, controversy, something comes up. We need a guy to step in. He steps in. Oh, wow, he's actually really good at this and can do this at this level. And like if that controversy with Mel Pearson never occurred, is Brandon Naurato currently the head coach at Northern Michigan or some other school in Michigan that is not the University of Michigan? And you let, again, from the outside, what appears to be a really good qualified head coach walk away from your program to go elsewhere because there's no opportunity there. And I get like there's finite opportunities. And of course, like if you have a head coach that you feel is doing well, you're not just going to gas him to bring in your assistant who's already on staff and everything. I'm not suggesting that, but I'm more saying that there appears to be a lot of qualified guys like Warsofsky, Naurato, Mazzulla that happen into these positions almost as if like they're not the number one choice, or as if they're not. I shouldn't say that because I don't know specifically the San Jose one. I don't know enough about that process, but with Boston and Michigan, it was like there was a controversy and you needed a head coach right away. And that wasn't necessarily like, hey, we're going to go through a rigorous hiring process and hire this guy. And then you look at like how well Michigan has done since Naurato's been there. Sure, they haven't won the national championship, but they've won a shitload of other things besides that. And they've been in the Final Four both years. And now the Celtics win the NBA championship. It's like, are there more guys like that out there in the NHL and in the NBA that are literally like uh Stanley Cup coaches in waiting, or like NBA championship coaches in waiting, that we're not even recognizing because we're still going back to, now we're getting on a different topic, but we're going back to guys that have already had shots, or that guys that we think are, a bigger splash in the news to hire. Um, because who the hell was Joe Mazzulla 2 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody knew who he was, I'm assuming. So anyway, I think there's ways to facilitate things like this more intentionally. And of course, there is luck and randomness involved, and there always will be, and there always should be. But there are also ways to pick out Eric Tulsky, um, aside from Don Waddell leaving, that kind of thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think there's huge. We're just leaving a lot of things on the table, doing it the way that we're currently doing it, and it's continuing through these. The Michigan example didn't even crazy to think that didn't cross my mind, but it didn't cross my mind. So I'm glad you brought it up. But he took over in August, so like the kids were on campus. They were doing their preseason informal skates. You got guys on the ice, you got guys on campus, and all of a sudden you need a head coach. Like you're probably not going to run a month-long nationwide search at that point. It's probably going to be who's in our room. Let's talk to the players, and then let's decide. And yeah, with the Mazzulla thing, whether it's the Naurato thing, I'm sure there's countless other ones that I'm missing. Um, but yeah, it's happy accident instead of done on purpose, and I think there's an asymmetrical advantage out there, and there's edge out there for, and we're so afraid of this word, but risk. Like if we're just willing to do something that we can't defend that well in a press release. And the Celtics did it, kind of. I'm sure there were questions. I haven't gone back and read the papers or the reports on it, but Joe Mazzulla was hired as a Celtics assistant, so an NBA assistant from Division II Fremont. I don't even know the name. State.
Fairmont
Um,
State. Fairmont
so
State.
if you talk about quantum leap and how that happened, um, I'm guessing it was when he spent one season in the G League. Like you just impress, or the right person sees you, or the right person's in the room, or I don't know how the G League works, but maybe that main team is affiliated with the Celtics. I don't know if every G
They
League
are.
team. So so I'm guessing Brad Stevens is in on a meeting one day, or Joe Mazzulla's at Celtics training camp because he's the head coach of the G League team, and he just starts talking about whatever he's comfortable talking about or whatever. But we talked about like the quantum leap in the last episode or 2 episodes ago. If you want to know how that happens, we talk about attracting and finding your people. Um, he got in front of the right person in Maine, I bet. Whether it was Brad Stevens, someone else in the organization, and they wrote his name down and filed it for later. And they said, when we need a guy, if he's coaching D3 or is Ubering, we should call Joe Mazzulla, because like that guy has asymmetrical upside potential to be somebody. Whether we're the only one that sees it or 30 teams see it, let's be first on him. And I think if you're willing to take a more risky, a more aggressive approach on some of these younger, talented people, that's where the edge is, and that's where you end up with a Joe Mazzulla. And your people are the most important asset in your organization, but we're too busy recycling guys, grabbing guys from central casting, grabbing guys with a credibility stamp, when the level 1 guys are the ones that basically have to like overcompensate. I didn't have, as a tier 3 head coach, the ability to be like, hey guys, I played pro, listen to me. And I've had players come to me from other teams where their coach was forced, their coach was a former pro. And I'm not just saying that to say that. Those are direct quotes that I've heard. Like players that I coached were being told, hey, I played pro, listen to me. And when you don't have that card to play, not that I would want to play that card anyway, because I just don't believe in it. Provide value, be liked and respected by your players. And the way to do that is through love, caring, and like learning and being on the razor's edge of all these different disciplines, whether it's mindset, whether it's you're also a strength coach, whether it's you're learning new ways to come in off of entry, whatever. Like the level 1 guys are, I'm going to use the word overcompensating again, but like they tend to be hungrier, and like they have to provide value, or there's no way a player is going to listen to them. I'll kick that to you.
The word that comes to mind for me is learners. They have
Mhm.
to be learners. You have to, if you didn't play like the example you're giving as a tier 3 head coach, if you didn't play pro hockey, then you need to learn, and you go now coach professional hockey. Like you've played juniors, you've played college, you haven't played pro. So getting to that pro level, you'd have to make sure you learn about that level in order to coach it. If you
Yeah.
had played 10 years of pro, you would come to pro hockey and be like, I already know because I played it. I don't need to learn about it. I just need to tell people like this is what I did, and this is like what our teams did. So this is what we're going to do here. And I think those genuine level 1 guys like you're talking about, Mazzulla, Warsofsky, like they have to learn in order to continue to get better and grow and get to the next level. And so at each stop, whether it's friggin' Fairmont State or South Carolina in the ECHL, they've got to learn that level. And they've got to make sure, okay, like what is this like? I didn't play in the NBA. So I can't just come here and say, like, listen to me, I played in the NBA. Yes, Mazzulla played Division 1, I think, at Western Virginia, but that's not the NBA. It's very good. It's not the NBA. So he doesn't immediately step on campus at a Division 2 school and have everyone thinking he knows everything because he won 2 NBA championships as a player. Same goes for Warsofsky, did not play in the NHL. So for him to now coach in the ECHL, AHL, NHL, he's got to learn what that level's about and make sure that he can connect with those guys and build a relationship, rapport, trust with them before he can just come in and say like, "Hey, I won a Stanley Cup, so this is what we're gonna do." And I think that level 1 path lends itself to people being learners and understanding that they're gonna have to learn at every level they're at and continue to grow and get better. And ultimately that serves you. It's you talk about like the quantum leap. I think like over time that serves you more and more and more because now you learn the ECHL level and you jump to the AHL and you've taken those lessons from the ECHL with you to the AHL and you learn more at the AHL level and now you take those lessons to the NHL and like you just continue to compound that learning over and over and over um, versus playing in the NHL and just going to coach pro, whether it's ECHL, AHL, and be like, we're just going to do what I did there because I know it works. And that isn't to say that it can't work, but that was as a player at a different time with different players and coaches and things, organizations and goals, resources. There's so many other things that go into it that if you're not even willing to learn or take those things into consideration, it's very difficult, I think. And um the one other thing I thought of, like I was just in my head going through, like I think the encouraging thing about a guy like Joe Mazzulla winning is or a guy like I shouldn't say him winning, but his team winning. Like I look at Jared Bednar and John Cooper, and they're obviously examples of this too of guys that like came from within the organization and were promoted up from I actually think Bednar played in South Carolina as well, I'm pretty sure. I'm sorry, coached in South Carolina as well, and then went to the AHL with Cleveland and now Colorado. And Cooper obviously with I think it was Norfolk, right? In the ECHL and Syracuse and Tampa. And now, I don't know basketball super well, but I'm assuming the G League is essentially their AHL, like they're just one level below the NHL. Like these guys, Bednar, Cooper, and Mazzulla, like somebody took a shot on them as well, going from the ECHL to the AHL, AHL to the NHL, G League to the Celtics. And like those organizations are being rewarded with championships. And so that risk you're taking of hiring John Cooper, who has literally never been an NHL head coach or never played in the NHL as a player. Jared Bednar never played in the NHL as a player. I don't believe. I think he played in the AHL a little bit and never coached in the NHL. And now, lastly, with Mazzulla, never played in the NBA, taking a chance on him in the NBA, even as an assistant, or even hiring him in the G League the first time around as from an assistant at Fairmont. Like these organizations, Celtics and Colorado and Tampa, like they took pretty big risks on making a guy a head coach or an assistant coach at that level. And they're being rewarded now, you know, 7 years later, I think it was for Colorado. Finally, they win a Stanley Cup. And for Tampa, it took a while as well with Cooper, close to that many years, I think. Happened a little quicker with Boston, but they're being rewarded. And so I'm hopeful that that'll show that'll show like, hey, this path can work and there can be success. And that's why like at the end of the day, I don't care where you coach and where you played. If you everyone should be a fan of Ryan Warsofsky. I know like I worked at Curry, he worked there as well. There's like maybe it's easy to be like, oh, you're biased and that's why you like him. But at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like he could have coached at friggin' Wisconsin Eau Claire. The fact that he has gone from Division 3 as an assistant to now being an NHL head coach, like I hope San Jose gets rewarded for that move. And he's able to bring success to their organization because it takes balls. It takes like a lot of like guts to make a move like that and to be like, you know what, let's do this. Let's try this and see if it works. And so I think it's I don't know, I think it's cool for just hockey, basketball, whatever sport in general to have someone you know, make a jump like that and then see them have success.
Yeah, I think there's such a contrast what you were saying earlier in your take. I want to jump off there, but like there's like if you think of a bell curve, Brian Kite calls the middle 80% the mountain of average. And he says that there's the most competition there. And you would think there would be more competition to be on the leading edge, to be in the elite category. But I think of the status quo and who we're hiring exactly like that bell curve, where what the Celtics have in Joe Mazzulla and what Tampa had and still has in John Cooper is they have edge because those guys are they have no conception of what that level looks like because they didn't play there. And that means under no circumstance are they going to perpetuate exactly how they were coached. And because of that, they're going to do it contrarian because they have no conception of how that level operates. They've never been in the locker room as a player, and they can't be like, well, I played under Jacques Martin. Now I'm an NHL head coach. I'm at this level. Let's just do it that way. And there's no edge when you have a league full of force coaches that all do it the way that Jacques Martin and Craig Berube. I'm going to stop rolling people now, but you get the idea. If you have 30 teams all competing with that leader, and then you have, when you were early doors on John Cooper, not right now because now the league's starting to figure it out a little bit. I want to give them credit. And we have a Jared Bednar too, and we have had a Don Granato, and we have a Sheldon Keefe. But like back when John Cooper was the token level 1 guy, they have edge because they're not competing. They're not playing the same game that everyone else is playing. Everyone has a force coach. Back when John Cooper started, he's the only one in power. Everyone has a former NHLer as their coach back when John Cooper started with Tampa. Tampa doesn't. So there's less competition in the game that Tampa's playing because they're the only one playing that game. And now there's 4 or 5 teams doing it, and everyone else is still competing on that mountain of average. But it's like we talk about create space and we give that advice to our players. Like, go play the game that no one else is playing, and like you might have some upside.
Yeah, that's a good point. I actually hadn't really thought of that as far as almost the most competition existing and kind of being average or just doing things the way it's always been done, for lack of a better way to put it. And there's truth to that in terms of now, like you're saying, if you're looking at the game that Tampa started playing whenever Cooper was hired, like they were kind of in a class of their own. And so the way they chose to do things was different than the way anyone else was doing it. And then you're not competing for the same resources, you're not competing for the same players, you're not even competing for the same coaches that you're looking to hire. And I think it is different but very similar of why recruiting actually can be pretty easy. Because if you are looking for players that play the way you would like them to play and the way that you think your team is best suited, then that flashy player that everyone wants, you may inherently know that's not what I'm looking for. But if you don't have a set system, or I don't want to call it a system, but if you don't have a set preference or belief of what type of player works for you, then the guy that everyone says you should be on, you also feel the need to be on. And in reality, like it takes just a lot of like thought and intentional deliberating on what it is that you want. Like if you're just make it real simple. If you're you need a bunch of D and you know that what you want are big defensemen that skate well, then that is going to remove a lot of other players that don't fit that category for you. And so now you're looking at a small subset of guys that might mean you're looking at lower leagues, higher leagues, who knows? But all you're looking for is big guys that skate well. So if you're small, you're out. If you're a big guy that doesn't skate well, you're out. And now imagine everyone's talking about this defenseman that everyone in, your conference is on or and your level's on. And everyone's like, you should be on him, you should be on him. But he's small. Right now, like it doesn't matter if everyone likes him. He is not going to fit what I want as a coach. And there's a certain power that that gives you now to go out and not worry about what everyone else is looking at and know that everyone can fight over him. I'm going to play a different game with just this one guy over here that not many guys are talking to because he fits what we really want. And not to get too in the weeds on this, but now imagine being that one big defenseman that skates well. You're getting all this love from one coach, and everyone else is over here fighting over the same guy. Realistically, only one of those coaches is getting that guy that everyone wants. And now you're over here with the big guy that skates well, and you can get him because no one has shown him the same amount of love. And so extrapolate that out with coaches or um, you know, general managers, whatever it might be. And if you're Tampa in this example and you're just playing a different game, you may not on the free agent market, you may not be all over the guy that everyone else is all over because you know what you need in your organization and what's going to make your team successful based on your coaching staff. And the same could go for hiring John Cooper. Like everyone is saying you should hire X guy and your guy is Cooper, then you don't have to worry about fighting over that coach and selling him on why coming to Tampa is better than going to LA or whatever other team. And there's power in knowing what you're really truly looking for and not then fighting the same fight that everyone else is fighting and you're running your own race.
Yeah, the word that or the phrase that comes to mind that Todd always used to say to me was fishing in different ponds. We fish in different ponds. So whether it's like right now you're at Tufts high academic school, like you tell me right now, you go to a game and the first thing you have to do is start crossing off kids that have a 2.6 and even like a 3.5 is probably not good enough to get into your school. But you're fishing in a different pond. And I think whether you're looking for coaches in that way, whether you're looking for players in that way, like the Chicago Steel aren't on the same defenseman that the Fargo Force are on. Just look at the roster. Uh, it's very apparent. Just talking about like the size thing. But if you are convicted in your identity and you know your identity and you know what you want, then that's going to change the pond that you choose to fish in. So I just wanted to throw that phrase out there for the people. But I'm kind of tapped out. If you have any closing thoughts, feel free to jump in. Yeah.
My biggest thing on that note is just like being intentional with what you're looking for, whether that's as a coach, general manager, even as a player. Like know what it is that you want out of a place, an experience, a person. It's going to help you ultimately like find success. And then when you're given that opportunity, whether, as a coach, you're given an opportunity to make a leap, like the guys we talked about today were able to, or as a player, if you're brought up by that guy that took a chance on you and now you're playing Division I hockey or professional hockey when maybe you know that it wasn't necessarily a guarantee. You weren't Macklin Celebrini going first overall. Like, don't forget that that's where you came from and that someone did need to take a chance on you and give you that opportunity. Because as you mentioned earlier, like there's a lot of people out there that have the talent and haven't gotten the opportunity. And there's a lot of people out there that have gotten the opportunity that don't have the talent. So when you are um, when you do have the talent and you are given the opportunity, it's a rare but rewarding thing. And as Warsofsky did in that press conference, like don't forget to give credit to the guy or guys or group that helped you get there.
Yeah. Shout out to Todd for being the first person to put me on the map. We'll to be continued on who the next person to give me a little bump is. Who's that guy for you?
For me, that gave me my first opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, probably like overall would be Jim Gaudette. He's now the head coach of Milton Academy, but he was at the time the head coach at the Boston Bandits in the NCDC league, and he he gave me a chance coming out of college where I literally had not done anything related to coaching ever. Like, obviously it was a junior assistant job, that didn't have a ton of like money or no benefits or anything really to offer. It was almost volunteer at the end of the day. Um, but still, like, he was willing to give someone who had just finished playing with no coaching experience a chance. And that to me, like, if I don't get that opportunity, there's no way I get the opportunity at Curry. Um, and then just from there, like, I'm not sitting where I am today. So, getting the opportunity at Curry, obviously, that's like a jump from juniors, and I'm fortunate for TJ hiring me there. But realistically, like, if I weren't to be hired at that, I can't even say hired. It's not like it was a hiring process. It was just like, hey, we need an assistant. Do you want to do this? And I was like, yeah. But but for Jim to give me that opportunity, like, if I weren't given that, I mean, I may not be coaching today. I might just be sitting here doing nothing, studying sports in some other capacity. So for sure, he was the guy that helped me out.
Easy, man. I'm just fucking with you. Somebody pulled me off the couch like Eric Tulsky. I'm writing a blog, and I want to stop Ubering. So there's my call to action. Somebody be the second person to pull me up. Shout out to Todd. Shout out to Jim. Find good people and raise them up. We'll see you next time.